The sun blazed over the dusty highway, casting long shadows as a lone motorbike roared through the desolate stretch. Jake, a rugged biker with a leather jacket and a steely gaze, gripped the throttle, unaware of the chaos about to unfold. Sirens wailed in the distance, slicing through the hum of his engine. 2 police cruisers screeched to a halt, blocking his path. Officers leapt out, guns drawn, shouting for Jake to dismount. "Hands up, now," one barked, mistaking him for a fugitive they'd been chasing. Jake, confused but calm, raised his hands. "You got the wrong guy," he said, voice steady. The cops weren't listening, their radios crackling with urgency. "Suspect apprehended," one reported, cuffing Jake's wrists. The air was thick with tension, dust swirling around them. Jake's bike, still idling, gleamed under the harsh sunlight, a symbol of his freedom now threatened. Minutes ticked by, and the situation escalated. A low rumble grew louder, shaking the ground. The cops froze, exchanging uneasy glances. From the horizon, a convoy of Humvees roared into view, kicking up clouds of dirt. 50 soldiers, armed and disciplined, poured out, their boots pounding the asphalt. Leading them was Captain Reynolds, a towering figure with a stern face and a voice like thunder. "Stand down," he commanded, his eyes locking onto the cops. The officers hesitated, their confidence crumbling. Jake, still cuffed, smirked slightly, sensing a shift. Who was this captain? Why was the military here? The highway, once quiet, was now a stage for an unfolding mystery, with Jake at its center. The Humvees formed a tight semicircle, their engines growling like beasts ready to pounce. Captain Reynolds stepped forward, his polished boots gleaming against the gritty highway. His presence silenced the cops, their hands hovering near their holsters, uncertainty etched on their faces. Jake, still cuffed, stood tall, his sharp eyes scanning the scene. The soldiers, stone-faced and disciplined, awaited orders, their rifles at the ready. The air crackled with tension, as if a single spark could ignite chaos. Reynolds raised a hand, halting his men. "Release him," he ordered, his voice cutting through the standoff like a blade. The lead cop, sweat beading on his brow, hesitated. "This is our jurisdiction," he stammered, clutching Jake's arm. Reynolds' gaze hardened. "You stopped the wrong man. Let him go, or we take over." The threat hung heavy, backed by the military's overwhelming force. Jake's cuffs clicked open, and he rubbed his wrists, his smirk now a full grin. "Told you," he muttered to the cop, who glared but stepped back. Reynolds approached Jake, his expression unreadable. "You're coming with us," he said, not a request but a command. Jake raised an eyebrow. "And if I don't?" Reynolds leaned in, voice low. "You don't want to find out why we're here." The soldiers parted, revealing a Humvee with tinted windows. Jake glanced at his bike, then back at Reynolds. The captain's insignia glinted, hinting at a deeper mission. Was Jake a target, a pawn, or something more? As he stepped toward the vehicle, the cops retreated, their authority shattered. The highway pulsed with questions, and the answers lay with the mysterious captain. Jake climbed into the Humvee, the door slamming shut with a heavy thud. The interior was stark, all metal and function, smelling of oil and authority. Captain Reynolds slid in beside him, his face a mask of focus. Outside, soldiers swarmed with precision, securing Jake's bike onto a trailer. The convoy roared to life, engines snarling as they sped down the highway, leaving the stunned cops in a cloud of dust. Jake's mind raced. Why him? What did the military want? Reynolds broke the silence. "You're no ordinary biker, are you, Jake?" His tone was probing, eyes narrowing. Jake leaned back, casual but alert. "Just a guy who likes the open road. You tell me why I'm here." Reynolds chuckled, a sound devoid of humor. "You've got something we need. Something you don't even know you have." The cryptic words hung between them, heavy with implication. The Humvee's radio crackled, a voice reporting coordinates and asset containment. Jake's gut tightened. Asset? Was that him? He glanced out the tinted window, the desert blurring past. The convoy was a fortress on wheels, disciplined and unstoppable. Yet, Jake sensed a fault line. Reynolds' confidence bordered on obsession. Whatever this mission was, it wasn't just about him. Destination? Jake asked, testing the waters. Reynolds' jaw tightened. "You'll know when we get there. For now, sit tight and don't try anything stupid." The captain's hand rested on his sidearm, a subtle warning. Jake smirked, undeterred. He'd faced worse odds. As the convoy thundered toward an unknown fate, Jake began piecing together the puzzle. The truth was close, hidden in the captain's shadowed gaze. The convoy rumbled through the desert, the Humvees slicing through waves of heat rising from the asphalt. Jake sat in the dimly lit vehicle, his mind sharp despite the uncertainty. Captain Reynolds stared ahead, his silence louder than the engines. Jake's eyes flicked to the captain's clenched fist, noticing a faint scar across his knuckles, a clue to a past not found in any military handbook. Whatever drove Reynolds, it was personal. The radio crackled again, a coded message. Package secure. ETA to base, 1 hour. Jake's instincts flared. Package? His bike, maybe? Or something, or someone else entirely. He leaned forward, testing Reynolds again. What's so special about my bike? Or is this about something you think I'm carrying? Reynolds' gaze snapped to him, cold and calculating. You ask too many questions, Jake. Just stay alive long enough to find out. The convoy slowed, approaching a checkpoint manned by soldiers in black tactical gear, their faces obscured. Jake caught a glimpse of crates in the trailer behind his bike, marked with cryptic symbols. Not standard military issue. Smugglers? Black ops? His gut screamed this was bigger than a mistaken identity. Reynolds barked orders and the convoy rolled past the checkpoint, accelerating toward a distant compound barely visible in the haze. Jake's mind churned. If he was the asset, why the firepower? If not, what was in those crates? He memorized every detail. The soldiers' insignias, the captain's scar, the Humvees' modified plating. Escape wasn't an option yet, but knowledge was power. As the compound loomed closer, Jake braced himself. The truth was waiting, and he'd tear it from Reynolds if he had to. The convoy rolled into a sprawling military compound, its high walls topped with razor wire glinting under the desert sun. Jake's eyes darted across the scene. Watchtowers, armed patrols, and a massive hangar looming at the center. The Humvees parked in precise formation, soldiers spilling out like a well-oiled machine. Captain Reynolds gestured for Jake to exit, his expression unyielding. Move, he ordered, his hand never straying far from his sidearm. Jake stepped onto the cracked tarmac, the air thick with diesel and tension. His bike was unloaded, but his focus locked on the crates from the trailer, now being wheeled toward the hangar under heavy guard. One crate bore a faint biohazard symbol, barely visible under scratched paint. Jake's pulse quickened. This wasn't about him or his bike, it was about whatever those crates held. Reynolds led him toward a steel-reinforced building, its entrance flanked by scanners and armed sentries. Inside, the air was cool, sterile, lined with monitors displaying encrypted data. Jake caught fragments, coordinates, chemical formulas, a map pinpointing remote locations. You're in deep now, Reynolds said, his voice low. That bike of yours was a decoy. You were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Jake's jaw tightened. Then why drag me here? Reynolds paused, his scar catching the fluorescent light. Because you've seen too much. And because you might still be useful. A soldier approached, handing Reynolds a tablet. The screen flickered with an image, a metallic device, intricate and alien. Jake's stomach dropped. Was this what the crates carried? As Reynolds turned away, Jake memorized the layout. He wasn't a prisoner yet. The game was on, and he'd find the truth. Jake followed Reynolds through the compound's labyrinthine corridors, the hum of machinery growing louder. The air felt charged, like a storm brewing underground. They entered a sealed chamber, its walls lined with reinforced glass and blinking consoles. At the center stood a crate from the convoy, now open, revealing a sleek, metallic device pulsing with faint blue light. It looked otherworldly, its surface etched with patterns Jake couldn't decipher. Soldiers stood guard, their eyes darting nervously. Reynolds faced Jake, his demeanor shifting from commander to interrogator. Recognize it? He asked, voice sharp. Jake shook his head, but his mind raced. The device wasn't military tech, not any he'd seen. Don't play dumb, Reynolds snapped. We know you've been places you shouldn't. That bike stop? A test. You passed. Jake's smirk returned. Past what? Your bad judgment? Reynolds ignored the jab, tapping the tablet. A hologram projected above the device, showing schematics and a map with glowing red dots, locations worldwide. This is bigger than you, Reynolds said. This device, it's a key. And you're connected to it, whether you know it or not. Jake's thoughts spun. Connected how? He was just a drifter, or so he thought. But the cop's mistake, the convoy, the crates, it all pointed to a setup. A klaxon blared, red lights flashing. "Breach," a soldier shouted. Reynolds cursed, grabbing his radio. "Secure the perimeter," he barked. Jake seized the moment, memorizing the device's details, its size, the glowing core, the strange markings. Whatever this was, it was worth killing for. As chaos erupted, Jake saw his chance. He wasn't just a pawn, he'd turn the board over. But first, he needed answers. The compound shook as alarms screamed, red lights casting eerie shadows. Soldiers scrambled, weapons drawn, their shouts drowned by the wail of sirens. Jake's pulse surged, his eyes locked on the glowing device in the chamber. Captain Reynolds barked orders, his focus split between the breach and Jake. "Lock him down," he snapped, but the chaos gave Jake his opening. He wasn't staying to be anyone's prisoner. A soldier lunged for him, but Jake sidestepped, using the man's momentum to slam him into a console. Sparks flew, screens flickering. Jake bolted for the chamber's exit, weaving through panicking technicians. The device's hum pulsed in his ears, almost alive, urging him to act. He didn't know why, but it felt like it was calling him. Outside, gunfire erupted, the breach escalating into a firefight. Who was attacking? Rivals? Insiders? Jake spotted a maintenance hatch in the corridor, half hidden behind crates. He pried it open, revealing a narrow tunnel. Reynolds' voice echoed behind him, "Stop him." Jake dove inside, the hatch clanging shut. The tunnel was dark, damp, filled with the hum of distant machinery. He crawled, heart pounding, piecing together fragments. The device, the map, Reynolds' scar. It all pointed to a conspiracy bigger than one compound. Light flickered ahead, an exit. Jake emerged in a motor pool, his bike parked among Humvees. A grin spread across his face. He hotwired it in seconds, the engine roaring to life. Bullets pinged nearby as soldiers spotted him. Jake gunned it, tearing through the compound's gate into the desert night. The device's image burned in his mind. He'd find answers, but on his terms now. Jake's bike screamed across the desert, kicking up sand under a starlit sky. The compound's lights faded behind him, but the roar of engines signaled pursuit. Humvees tore through the dunes, their headlights slicing the darkness. Jake leaned low, pushing his bike to its limits, the wind whipping his face. He didn't know what the device was, but its image, pulsing, alien, burned in his mind. Reynolds wanted it, and now someone else was attacking to get it. Jake was caught in the middle, but he wasn't prey. A Humvee closed in, its mounted gun swiveling. Bullets churned the sand near Jake's tires. He swerved, using a rocky outcrop for cover, his bike skidding but holding steady. The radio in his stolen earpiece crackled, Reynolds' voice, furious. "Cut him off at the canyon." Jake smirked. They thought they had him trapped. He knew these deserts better than any soldier. Ahead, a narrow canyon loomed, its walls jagged and unforgiving. Jake gunned the engine, weaving through the entrance as Humvees struggled to follow. One miscalculated, crashing into the rock face, sparks flying. Jake's mind raced. Why him? Reynolds' words, "You're connected," gnawed at him. Was it his past? A job he'd taken? He remembered a strange delivery months ago, a package he never opened. Could it be linked? The canyon widened, revealing a dirt road. Jake spotted a dust cloud, more vehicles, but not military. Black SUVs, unmarked, aggressive. The attackers from the compound? They weren't with Reynolds. Jake's escape just got messier. He throttled up, aiming for open desert. Answers could wait, survival couldn't. The device's secret was his leverage now, and he'd use it to stay alive. Jake's bike tore through the open desert, the horizon a blur of sand and stars. The black SUVs gained ground, their engines snarling like predators. Unlike the military Humvees, these were sleek, modified for speed, their drivers relentless. Jake's earpiece crackled with static, Reynolds' voice gone. He was alone, the canyon's echo replaced by the howl of pursuit. The device's image haunted him, its pulsing glow, the map's red dots. Whatever it was, these new players wanted it as badly as Reynolds. A flash of light ahead snapped Jake to attention. An SUV had cut him off, blocking the path. He swerved, tires skidding, narrowly avoiding a collision. Two more vehicles flanked him, boxing him in. Armed men in tactical gear leapt out, their faces masked, weapons trained. "Dismount," one shouted, voice cold. Jake killed the engine, hands raised, but his mind calculated every angle. He wasn't done yet. Hand it over, the leader demanded, stepping closer. Jake frowned. Hand what over? I'm just a biker. The man's eyes narrowed, unconvinced. Don't play games. We know you've seen it. The device. They thought he had it, or knew where it was. Jake's delivery job flashed in his mind again, the sealed package he dropped off in a border town. Was that the connection? Before he could respond, a low rumble shook the ground. Headlights pierced the night. Reynolds' Humvees, back in the fight. The masked men scattered, returning fire as soldiers poured in. Jake seized the chaos, kicking his bike to life. Bullets flew, sand erupting around him. He sped toward a dune's crest, the truth closer but more dangerous. Whoever won this firefight, Jake was no one's prize. Jake crested the dune, his bike airborne for a heartbeat before slamming back to the sand. Gunfire echoed behind him, the clash between Reynolds' soldiers and the masked attackers fading into the night. He didn't look back. The desert stretched endless, but Jake knew a border town lay ahead, a dusty outpost where he'd made that strange delivery months ago. The package, the device, the map's red dots, it all pointed there. He throttled harder, the engine's roar his only companion. The town emerged, a cluster of neon-lit shacks and bars. Jake slowed, weaving through quiet streets, his eyes scanning for trouble. The delivery had been to a nondescript warehouse, no questions asked. Now, it felt like the key to everything. He parked near the warehouse, its rusted doors locked tight. A faint hum, like the device's pulse, seemed to seep from within. Was it here? Footsteps crunched behind him. Jake spun, fists ready, but it was a grizzled old man, a local mechanic. "You're back," he rasped, eyes knowing. "Shouldn't be here." Jake tensed. "What do you know?" The man glanced at the warehouse. "They've been watching since you dropped that package. Military. Suits. Others." Jake's gut twisted. The old man tossed him a key. "Back door. Be quick." Jake slipped inside, the warehouse dark, filled with crates like the ones at the compound. One glowed faintly, its biohazard symbol unmistakable. Before he could investigate, headlights flooded the windows, SUVs, not military. The attackers had tracked him. Jake gripped the key, heart pounding. The device's hum grew louder, almost alive. He had seconds to act. The truth was here, but so was the danger.